When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ludlow, and enjoy today's episode.
Wow, that's crazy. They're changing their tactics and their systems on how they're going to make money. There's no the money. We used to be in marijuana, no more on marijuana. Used to be in cocaine, now they're in fentanyl. So now there's human trafficking. After Sound of Freedom movie released, now human trafficking is one of their big money makers.
Big money makers is because of immigration. As I said, immigrants are defenseless. Defenseless. And I'm not going to tell you stories here, but I've heard horrible stories of what happens to immigrants when they organize crimes in those communities. They know they're crossing and they force them to do horrible things just to be alive, not to let them go, just to be alive. So it's horrible what they go through. I'm not saying that every one of those immigrants is a good person or a bad person, but I don't think any human being deserves that because I still believe that they are forced to leave their countries because of economic conditions or security conditions, like in Nicaragua or Honduras or El Salvador. Salvador is having a very tough policy on security with President Bukele. Human rights organizations complain a lot. The way I see it is that guy is bringing a lot of investment because of what he did. I don't know. It's questionable. It's questionable who's violating human rights of whom. Organized crime violates your human rights because they don't live in peace. But then all of a sudden we have to be merciful. We have to have mercy of those assassins, killers. It's human nature is tough and unfair. But we, as I said, we have to do. Once we know what we must do, we do what we can do.
Right.
And sometimes you can't do everything, and because you also have to protect yourself. But going back to the conversation of tourism. That's part of tourism, and then you have the typical tourism that goes to the beach or to cultural areas in the middle of the country, which is like the oldest part of Mexico where independence movement started, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful architecture. You have people go there or going to north to the Copper Canyon. You have those expeditions of people, and that tourism is up too. Is up, and the government has done a good job trying to protect those areas from organized crime. I don't know if they negotiate. I didn't say that, but I did. Negotiate, or they say if these people don't come, there's not going to be anything for anyone.
Yeah, and behave themselves and put them in check.
Yeah, I mean, if you want,
we want tourists coming to Mexico and spend their dollars from the U.S. to keep our businesses running.
If you want to milk the cow and dry the cow, do it. We have the cow in a different way, but and it's not only Mexican organized crime. In the southeast, in the Ribera Maya, in Cancun, in those areas, you have the Russian mafia, you have the Romanian mafia, you have a lot of Eastern European.
Of course,
a lot of Eastern Europe, and they specialize in different things. Eastern European organized crime loves to deal with the human trafficking and ramming jewelry to steal watches or jewelry. That's what they like, and others others don't want to be, they don't want to have their hands dirty, and they just go to cybersecurity because with one click you steal millions, and that's the safest. That's why bank robbery is at the lowest levels ever, because you go to the bank to the bank teller, and how much do you get? $1,000? You expose yourself to a life in prison.
Not worth it.
Not worth it anymore. So you go to...
Might as well build condos on the beach and build a resort. More money.
The worst part is that you can find in the dark web or in the open sources, $200 courses for 14-years old to become hackers. And there's nothing you can do about that.
bigger money, bigger ransoms.
Especially if those guys are reckless, if they're brave enough and they think they can do everything. But hopefully, and I'm sure there's a lot of cooperation between countries in terms of cybersecurity and hacking and things like that. And a lot of sites are monitored by governments, so it's not that difficult to catch those guys if they do big things. Because we've heard, I monitor a lot the Europol, and there's a lot of news about taking down illegal casinos, online casinos, illegal hackers, illegal traders of cryptocurrency and things like that. So they are monitoring things, and at least in Mexico, even pornography is monitored. Probably not in your house, but us, the ones in the industry, in the security industry, if someone at the company starts, surfing or looking at pornography, especially child pornography, we have the systems to have this alarm that somebody's looking at very suspicious websites. We have to call the police immediately, even if it's our employee. We have to do that because we know that they monitor that. And if they come if the cyber police comes to the office and they start conducting an audit and they find something that we didn't report, they close down our company. So we have to be the first ones to say, we have to talk to our employee. And I say, like, I'm sorry, we're not going down because of your problems in your head. We have to report this and you're going to be on your own. You're going to be on your own. Probably we provide psychological help to them, but the legal procedure is on their own because you don't do that. You don't do that.
Right.
You shouldn't do that at all. And that's the way it works. That's the way it works. And we have to sell. We have to live by what we sell: ethics, values, good behavior. That's what the industry is. Because we are an extension of law enforcement somehow.
Yeah, that makes sense. And for the audience joining us, we have Hector Robles, who's the president of First Call in Mexico. Hector and I have known each other for several years now. And Hector's been in the industry for how many years have you been in the private sector security, Hector? Well,
the private security industry, I've been here only for the last 8.5 years. But in the security industry, I've been in the industry since 1999 when I started working for a French company called Matra Communication, and they sold PMR, a professional mobile radio communication, cellular radio communication for defense and security forces. They sold huge radio communication networks to a lot of European countries, but that network is special because it's fully encrypted end to end. End to end, there's no way you can crack. I can give you the frequency and give you a lot of information, but you can probably find the sound, but to decode that, it's going to be probably impossible because the code changes every certain hours. And that network was sold to the Mexican government. So I was working in Spain for the Mexican Exim Bank. I was on an international assignment for 2 years in Madrid.
Wow!
Where I lived for 3.5 years, and I came back to work for them. There's a French company, but they are part of what is now Airbus, the plane manufacturer. But Airbus has a lot of different business units. One is satellites. One is they're part of Ariane, the European NASA, let's call it like that. They build satellites and they build secure land communications as well, and planes. So I worked for them for 7.5 years. That's where I started. They are then selling and developing business. I worked a lot with government and with the intelligence agencies, with those networks. And then I worked for 3 Israeli companies. One in the interoperability sector, which is telecommunications as well, is connecting different networks with different protocols. I work for another one for physical security to protect critical infrastructure with license plate recognition, fingerprints, and things like that. And another one with a former director of the Mossad for the intelligence software for OSINT and fusion centers as well, NSA type of thing, fusion centers. So that's where I got a lot of. We had to analyze different things that were coming up. Like I remember 13 years ago, probably Tinder or Snapchat, because it was insecure because of the time when you shared a picture, it lasted only for 24 hours. So there was a lot of sexting or sending, pictures, and we had to monitor that. We had to analyze it in Tinder as well, because from Tinder you went to Facebook, from Facebook to WhatsApp or WeChat or text messaging, and from there to a nice date, and from there everything went violent. So there were a lot of things with prostitution and even people getting killed because of the trusting the wrong person. But that's what I did, and then I landed a job with because of my sales and the sales and business development experience. Well, I used to work for Johnson Medical and General Electric as well. I work for them as well in the healthcare industry, which I like very much. But I'm not an operational person. I've never been an EP agent myself. I was hired by Steel International. You know, that company now is called First Call, Steel International or Steel Foundation. Many people knew it because Steel back in the 90s privatized executive security. They protected a lot of government officials from other countries and I think one or two presidents. So they worked a lot with the State Department, and that's how Steel got very, very big, working in the Middle East, working in Asia, working in the US, working after leaving the Middle East because of political reasons, well, the next war, if you want to call it like that, or the next disaster economy, the way I call it, was Latin America. So they landed in Mexico back in 2004.
Okay.
Only with the GPS monitoring. They wanted to compete with OnStar. And I think they did a pretty good job because OnStar is good, but it's only road assistance. And First Call provided emergency response and GPS monitoring, but focusing on security, especially, for a lot of expats, nationals, top executives. Now it has gone to duty of care. There are companies that they have extended the emergency response to 15,000 employees of the company. We have 55. We have a GSOC in Mexico City, and we provide service, the emergency response over the phone, and we response teams to about 65,000 users. We don't get 55,000 calls a day, of course not. Probably we get in a peaceful day 150, in a bad day, like when there are earthquakes in Mexico City or hurricanes or things like that, maybe 280, 30 calls, and then we have to manage. We are a crisis management and executive protection company. We do a lot of executive protection investigations as well. We do a lot of, as I said, GPS monitoring, emergency response investigations, vulnerability assessments, risk assessments, and that's what we do. And we changed the name in 2017 because our corporate investigation services grew so much that from the little boy in our company, it grew to be the rich brother, huge, and it was sold to private banking. Well, part of it, and now I think it's owned by Diligent, a huge chunk by Diligent. These private bankers, they buy the company for 5 years. They develop it, and they go to the place where they want it, and then they just sell it, and that's where we are. That's why we had to change the name to First Call, because the name was sold to them, because they didn't want to confuse the clients with still corporate security services and still corporate investigation services, which was doing a lot of due diligence and investigations and
still doesn't exist anymore, do they?
Still, as a name, no, it doesn't exist anymore. We're trying to get back the name. We're trying to get back the name because Diligent bought the company 2 or 3 years ago from that. From what we had, from what we still have, and from the private bankers, and we're trying to get it back. We don't want, at least we want to own the name, even if we don't change the name, because it has legacy and we're proud of the name, and we will use it at some point. So we are trying to get it back. But at the moment, we use First Call, and First Call was the name of a product. At the beginning, when Steel went to Mexico with GPS monitoring and emergency response, the name of that product was Global Rapid Response, GRR, but it was too long. So they say in this, brainstorming session, we say, well, we want our clients to be first to call. And they say, well, why don't we call this service instead of GRR First Call? And then a lot of people in Mexico and many places knew First Call because of this service. And we decided it was well known in the industry, and that's why we use that name now, First Call. Corporate.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense now. I'm like, why do they call it First Call? And then now it makes sense. Okay,
now you know.
Now I know the history behind Steel Foundation, First Call. Then you guys, it sounds like you guys are working on rebranding and relaunching the legacy, the name of it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s and the 90s, I mean, Steel Foundation was a huge firm, huge. They had many embassy contracts, all kinds of stuff. They were a big player.
Yeah, a big player, and they protected a lot of I would say communities in at risk.
Yeah,
so that's the way it started, and also temples as well, synagogues and different places that for some reason are vulnerable. I would say vulnerable communities, LGBTQI and blah, blah, blah. And that's the way it is started still. Protecting those places. If you remember this film, Dallas Buyers Club.
Yeah. Remember that movie?
That movie where people went to see what kind of treatment they could get, and because there was no treatment. But if today we are in this situation with the transgender and this and that, and we don't know what to call and how to behave because of that, imagine back in the 90s. Back in the 90s, it was even worse, and hate crimes and things like that. So we were protecting those places, and that's the connection with the government, and from there protecting temples, beliefs, religions and things like that. And from there we moved to executive protection and different things, and that's why Steel got so big. And there were, of course, you have to make it work, and the people who were Steel at that time were very good, and Ken Cart's still there, still CEO of the company. But now we only focus on Latin America and in the US. We are not as present in other countries with offices, not at all anymore, because executive protection is a very, I would say, it's a profitable industry, but it has come to a point where anyone can be a protector.
Yeah, true. Good point. Really good point.
To be a protector, if you take that's why we're working a lot with a board of executive protection professionals, the BEPP, to create the standard. And I'm participating in the working group, and I'm glad to do that because we need, in my point of view, we need it because we need to follow the steps of what is done in Europe. You cannot be an executive protection agent if you don't have the certification from the government. Otherwise, you just have any kind of, you can't even be in the gates and guard. You can't be a guard protecting a building if you don't have that certification from the government. Because you have.
Well, here's a question. The questions I hear out there is there a desire for organizations to want to federalize executive protection? Is that the goal of BEEP? I know a few people that are on the board
the BEEP is to have at least a minimum standard. It's not going to be the only standard, but what we're trying to do is to have the ANSI recognition. So at least you go through that course, you certified, and if you wanna train them in a lot more, like you have your Ludlow way of things, you have that ANSI, and then you start working on the way you do things. But there's a minimum standard of like a level playing field for everyone, and I think that's good, because even foreigners can take it. It's not that we're going to work in the U.S. It's just that.
Well, I know. As is was questioning BEEP, and there's a little thing going on between BEEP and As Is about what are you guys doing? We already do this. What happened? Do you know anything about that background with As Is and BEEP, or I'm not sure what happened?
From the noise is that As Is thought they had the proprietary rights, if that's the way you call it, to create that standard, but they never created the standard. They create certifications. But that
so As Is known for certifications.
Well, there's the certifications, the CPP and the PSC and the APP, and As Is good, as well as IFPO. I'm the president of the. By the way, I'm the president of the Mexico chapter of IFPO. And we all want.
I'm just trying to educate the audience that really don't know, because everybody on LinkedIn has probably seen, they see As Is out there, they see BEEP and those guys doing their thing, and they go, "What is this?" Because I hear some confusion on. Or are they trying to federalize this with the federal government? What are they trying to do? There's some confusion out there. Just trying to clear that confusion up.
Well, there may be a confusion because people are used to As Is or IFPO or other companies that help you go through courses in executive protection. But as I said, everyone has their own way of doing things. So what they train you for is to be an executive protection agent, I guess, in their way they do things, because they have a Secret Service background or a State Department background or a Navy SEAL background or Special Forces background. And they all see things differently. They attack things differently. Maybe at some point, maybe you overlap, maybe you do that,
sure.
like any company. But the purpose is to have just one single minimum requirement for everyone. And from there, if you have your own company and you want to train more people, or you have your training academy, well, you have to comply with ANSI. And then the cherry on top is your know-how.
But each state has a different requirement for regulation. So how do you do that nationwide to make it legal?
Well, ANSI is the one giving us the guidance to create this at the national level, because ANSI has just like ISO, like the ISO 9000 or different international standards
for manufacturing, right?
Manufacturing or for whatever you want. Then ANSI is going to give you it's going to guide us on what to have this at the national level, because it's national. So without their approval, then this is not going to happen. So that's why it's going to take a long time. This is not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen probably next year, probably in a couple of years, because there's a lot of going back and forth with the with analyzing different documents, giving your opinions or your qualified opinions. It is not about grammar. It's not about grammar or you wrote this bad or this is a comma here. No, it's about the deep thoughts of the process, not just in the surface. It has taken a long time. That's why there's a working group and a technical group. And then everything has to be sent to ANSI, and then they have to tell you, it's just like having your thesis revised by your professor. You're not going to get the Harvard degree just because you wrote a thesis. You need somebody to correct and somebody to tell you this is what you're going to get. And ANSI is doing that.
What is ANSI? What is that? I never heard of them before until the as is and BEEP were going at it with each other about. And the ANSI is the one given the certification. But what is ANSI? What do they do?
What ANSI is?
Okay.
Yes,
I'm just curious.
ANSI is the American National Standard Institute.
So American Standard Institute. So they're a standardization organization.
Yes. For example, when I work for Otis Elevators, I'm going to give you a quick example of that. When I worked for Otis Elevator, the situation was that we could install elevators in Mexico under a different standard. But if we wanted to install elevators or escalators or travelators in the U.S., we had to comply with ANSI standards, which are a lot higher than anywhere in the world. I can tell you, and how do I know this? Because probably, I'm going to give you a number. Probably an elevator can cost, I'm going to give you a random number, $25,000 for an elevator for 5 or 7 people for a 3, 4, 5-story building. That would cost maybe $25,000. In the U.S., because of ANSI, that costs $50,000 because you have to comply with a lot of, safety regulations, special phone or button to communicate with the fire engine, with the police, with the building administration, with the building security. There's a lot of things that you comply with ANSI. That's why ANSI is so important at the U.S. level. That's why we're looking for the ANSI, because it's the American National Standard Institute. It's like the U.S. version of the ISO. ISO is International Standard Organization. ANSI is the American standard. That's why we're looking for that.
And now I kind of remember the release of BEEP coming out, and then everybody's like, with as is, like, well, we already have a standardization with as is. How are we supposed to go above as is now? Because and now you clarified that with their certification. They give certifications.
Certifications, but it's not ANSI, and that's why also, and for the same reason you have IFPO, and for the same reason you have ATAP. And for the same reason, you have so many organizations.
You have all these different organizations who give you certifications.
Certifications. And if you want certification, you train your people. And many companies do it for recruitment purposes. They create a course. Everyone goes there. And the best in the course get a job.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's right. I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't pursue a proper way of life, but what is different. Well,
here's a question for you. I have a bachelor's degree in criminology from a state university in Oregon. Mm-hmm. I have a Marine Corps background. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. But if I'm not ANSI legit, I'm not legit. I'm just asking for purposes of the debate.
Exactly. And if you're a lawyer in Texas, you're going to need to pass the bar in California or be recognized by the bar in California.
Right.
Right. And that's why in the industry, we need a permit, security permit from license in every state to operate.
Right. Exactly. Totally true. I totally agree with that. I'm not against, raising the level of standard. I mean, I've seen the industry change dramatically since COVID. People just don't want to work out there. The laziness, everybody wants $100 an hour in the U.S. And it's like, that's the bill rate for a prime contract, $100 an hour. And I see a sense of laziness in the United States. And we got a younger generation of executive protection agents coming in the industry. And there has to be something to hold a standard to. For excellence, perform for those clients, and I get that. I'm not opposed to it.
And it is not a matter of not recognizing that you are, special forces, or you were in the special forces. I mean, everyone, thanks everyone for their service because, and I always say that because, protecting the U.S. is protecting a huge chunk of the world. And I thank them for that. And I love when they recognize them. And I love when Green Beret says that to special forces, thank you for your service, brother. And because I've never been at war. I'm as I said, I'm not an operational person. I haven't ever been an AP agent. I was hired because of my business acumen.
Development background, right.
Development background, because I, the way I managed companies before, and that was what Steel wanted at the time, wanted to grow, wanted to change the business model, and I helped them there. They already had the standards, they were like a mature company, but in Mexico, they wanted to grow the business more and change more from event services to ongoing fixed contracts. And that's what we do. And it took us 3 years to change our revenue model to be more reliable. And that change is impressive, because you have to have more people. You have to show Fortune 500 or Fortune 5000 or whatever index you want to call. We have to show that we were able to do that, because in first call or for King Cards, we could be as Mexican as we wanted outside the company, but inside the company, we had to behave like everybody else anywhere in the world for Steel. And that was the way Steel had operated for so many years. So we know regulations in the US. We know the legal framework. We know different things. We are trained in different things. All the way from a typical situational awareness training course to workplace violence, which is a lot what we do still in doing US, or harassment or different things. We need to know that, because we know we have to behave the way our headquarters behave. That's what we have to do.